Hey guys, welcome to another First Four Friday from home. The first one that we're going to talk about is what was the Berlin Wall? I'm very fascinated by the Berlin Wall. It came down. I remember it coming down, but for those of you who don't know really what it is, the back says, which of these facts are true? It divided the city of Berlin, separating families and friends for 28 years. Thousands of East Berliners tried to cross into West Berlin. 2 people escaped by zipline. All around the world, people celebrated when the wall finally began to come down in 1989. All of the above. And it's all of the above. Can you imagine being separated from your family? I think that we can all kind of relate a little bit right now because we can't really go see people and we're missing each other a lot. So I think that we all can kind of relate a little bit to that in one degree. It's definitely not, what did they say, 28 years. We won't be separated for 28 years, maybe 28 more days, maybe more weeks. We'll see. So this is by Nico Medina. I really love these Who Was, What Was books. Another one that we're going to be doing today is a Who Was. The Lexile level for this one is 910. So even though it's a pretty thin book, there's 105 pages with quite a few pictures. It has a higher Lexile level, and we know Lexile level means the difficulty of the words that are in the book. So they're a little bit more difficult, but it happened a long time ago. Okay, so it starts off with a map. Mrs. White loves maps. What was the Berlin Wall? Peter Fetscher was born in Berlin, the capital city of Germany, in 1944. That was just before the end of World War II. After the war, Germany was divided into eastern and western parts. So was the city of Berlin. Peter grew up on the east side of the city. When Peter was 12, his oldest sister got married and moved to West Berlin. 2 years later, Peter left school and began working as a bricklayer. He hoped to save up enough money to join his sister in West Berlin one day. There were better jobs there, and Peter longed for a better life. For many years, the border between East and West Berlin had been relatively open. 500,000 Berliners crossed back and forth every day. 12,000 children traveled from East Berlin to West Berlin to go to school. Even the city's subway lines crossed the border. Can you see where it's going? There's a little picture of this one. Okay, so how many children do you think were on the other side when they put up the border patrol and stopped letting people cross? Can you imagine being separated from your parents? That would be rough. Next one, who was Walt Disney? Lexile level of 720. On the back it says, who was Walt Disney? A boy who loved to play practical jokes, an ambulance driver in France during World War I, the creator of Mickey Mouse, all of the above. That's the right one. So he's a very fascinating person. We all probably recognize the name, but how much do we know about this guy? These Who Was books are fairly well researched, and they have some really good and fun information. So who was Walt Disney? Walt Disney liked being the class clown. Can you relate to that? You know who I'm talking about. He once said that he would do anything for attention. His schoolmates in Marceline, Missouri loved his performances. Once he got a field mouse and made a leash for it out of string. He waltzed into class and paraded his new pet around the room. Don't even think about it. Somebody saw the little critter and screamed. Walt's teacher marched right over, put an end to the mischief, and punished Walt. But he didn't care. He and his mouse were famous for a day. Walt Disney didn't know it then, but one day another mouse, one named Mickey, would make him famous all over the world. Pretty good start. The next one is Esperanza Rising. This one is a Lexile 750. Esperanza believed her life would be wonderful forever. She would always live on her family's ranch in Mexico. She would always have fancy dresses and a beautiful home filled with servants. Papa and Abuelita would always be with her. But a sudden tragedy shatters her world and forces Esperanza and Mama to flee to California, where they settle in a camp for Mexican farm workers. Esperanza isn't ready for the hard labor, financial struggles brought on by the Great Depression, and lack of acceptance she now faces. When Mama gets sick, a strike for better working conditions threatens to uproot their new life. Esperanza must find a way to rise above her difficult circumstances because Mama's life and her own depend on it. Does this sound a little bit like Cesar Chavez? Remember that story? Aguascalientes, Mexico, if I said that right. 1924. Our land is alive, Esperanza, said Papa, taking her small hand as they walked through the gentle slopes of the vineyard. Leafy green vines draped the arbors, and the grapes were ready to drop. Esperanza was 6 years old and loved to walk with her papa through the winding rows, gazing up at him and watching his eyes dance with love for the land. This whole valley breathes and lives, he said, sweeping an arm toward the distant mountains that guarded them. It's time for recess. Where was I? This whole valley breathes and lives, he said. It gives us the grapes and then they welcome us. He gently touched a wild tendril that reached into the row, as if it had been waiting to shake his hand. He picked up a handful of earth and studied it. Did you know that when you lie down on the land, you can feel it breathe, that you can feel its heart beating? Papi, I want to feel it, she said. Come. They walked to the end of the row where the incline of the land formed a grassy swell. Papa lay down on his stomach and looked up at her, patting the ground next to him. Esperanza smoothed her dress and knelt down. Then, like a caterpillar, she slowly inched flat next to him, their faces looking at each other. The warm sun pressed on one of Esperanza's cheeks and the warm earth on the other, and she giggled. Shh, he said. You can only feel the earth's heartbeat when you are still and quiet. She swallowed her laughter and after a moment said, I can't hear it, Papi. Wait a little while and the fruit will fall into your hand. You must be patient, Esperanza. She waited and lay silent, watching Papa's eyes. And then she felt it, softly at first, a gentle thumping, then stronger, a resounding thud, thud, thud against her body. She could hear it too. The beat rushing in her ears. Shoop, shoop, shoop. She stared at Papa, not wanting to say a word, not wanting to lose the sound, not wanting to forget the feel of the heart of the valley. She pressed closer to the ground until her body was breathing with the earth's and with Papa's, the three hearts beating together. She smiled at Papa, not needing to talk, her eyes saying everything. And his smile answered hers, telling her that he knew she had felt it. Esperanza Rising. Really, really, really good book. And the last one is Levin Thump's Gateway to Foo. This one is Alexile 850. The back says, 14-year-old Levin Thumps, aka Lev, lives a wretched life in Burnt Culvert, Oklahoma. But everything is about to change as he learns about a secret gateway that bridges two worlds, the real world and Foo, a place created at the beginning of time that makes it possible for humans to dream and hope, aspire and imagine. But Foo is in chaos, and 3 transplants from that dream world have been sent to retrieve Lev, who alone has the power to save Foo. Enter Clover, a wisecracking, foot-high sidekick, Winter, a girl with special power of her own, and Geth, the rightful heir to Foo. Their mission? To convince Lev that he has the power to save Foo. Can this unique band of travelers help Lev overcome his doubt? Will Lev find the gateway in time? Or will Sabine and his dark shadows find the gateway first and destroy humanity? Dun dun dun! The beginning. It was at least 40 degrees above warm. The day felt like a windowless kitchen where the oven had been left on high for an entire afternoon. Heat beat down from above and sizzled up from the dirt as the earth left off some much-needed steam. The sky had decided it had quite enough, thank you, and vacated the scene, leaving the air empty except for heat. No matter how wide a person opened his mouth that afternoon or how deep a breath was taken, there just wasn't enough oxygen in the air to breathe. The few remaining plants in people's gardens didn't droop, they passed out. And the flags that only days before had hung majestically on top of local flagpoles no longer looked majestic. They looked like multicolored pieces of cloth that had climbed up and tragically hung themselves. All this, in and of itself, was not too terribly unusual, but as the heavy sun started to melt away, an odd, wild, uncoordinated wind began to pick up. Not a northerly wind or an easterly breeze, it was a wind with no direction or balance. It was as if the four corners of the earth and heaven all decided to simultaneously blow, creating what the local weather personalities in Tin Culvert, Oklahoma, called beyond frightening. Sure, people could breathe, but now they were getting blown away. Trees bent and writhed, whirling like pinwheels as the atmosphere pinched and pulled at them. Rooftops buckled and nature picked up huge handfuls of dirt and spastically flung them everywhere. Cats learned how to fly that evening, and any loose article weighing less than a car was taken up in the rapture of the moment. People locked themselves in their homes, radios on, waiting for someone to tell them everything was going to be okay, or for nature to do them in. So, 11 Thumps. For those who like fantasy, that's another really good one for you. So those are our first 4 Friday books for this week. I hope that you are continuing to read and are working on all of your homeschool joy, and I hope I get to see you soon.